Rain pounded against the towering glass windows as Alexander Sterling stood alone in his luxurious office, gazing over the city he had helped build. To the world he was a billionaire, a visionary, and one of the most powerful men alive. But tonight, wealth meant nothing. His greatest challenge wasn't building an empire, it was deciding who should inherit it. On his desk rested 5 identical black envelopes, each carrying the name of a complete stranger. Beside them lay an old leather journal with 4 simple words engraved on its cover: character above all. Alexander slowly picked up the first envelope, his expression calm but determined. "Business can be taught," he murmured. "Leadership can be learned, but character reveals itself." With that, he sealed the fate of 5 strangers who had never met, never crossed paths, and had no idea that a single invitation was about to change their lives forever. Across different cities, 5 lives were about to change forever. Sarah, a hard-working single mother, struggled every day to provide for her son. Marcus, a former hacker, searched for a second chance after years of regret. David, a decorated military veteran, battled invisible scars left by war. Chloe, a successful social media influencer, believed money could buy anything. And Daniel, a humble high school teacher, valued kindness more than wealth. Though they came from different worlds, they all received the same mysterious black envelope. Inside was a simple invitation with no explanation, only a promise that would change everything. None of them knew why they had been chosen, but someone had been watching them all along. 24 hours later, the 5 strangers arrived at a secluded mountain estate aboard a private jet. Towering pine trees surrounded the massive mansion, while dark clouds rolled overhead and a cold rain fell across the grounds. For the first time, they stood face to face. Sarah looked around cautiously, unsure of what awaited her. Marcus silently studied the others, convinced there was more to this invitation than anyone realized. David remained alert, his military instincts telling him something wasn't right. Chloe couldn't hide her excitement, already imagining the fortune that might soon be hers. Daniel simply observed in silence, searching for answers instead of assumptions. As the grand entrance slowly opened, a voice echoed through the estate. "Welcome. Your journey begins now." Without another word, the 5 strangers stepped inside, unaware that every decision they made from this moment forward would determine not only their future, but the future of an entire empire. The 5 strangers were led into a magnificent theater hidden deep within the estate. The room fell silent as the lights dimmed and a massive screen flickered to life. Alexander Sterling appeared before them. Calm, composed, and impossible to read, the billionaire looked directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, it means you've accepted my invitation," he began. "Each of you was chosen for a reason. Over the coming days, you'll face a series of challenges. They won't test your intelligence or your strength. They'll reveal something far more valuable." The screen went black for a moment before one final message appeared. "Only one of you will inherit my empire." The room remained silent, but one question echoed through every mind: why us? The towering doors slowly opened, revealing a magnificent marble hall, unlike anything the 5 strangers had ever seen. Waiting for them were 5 identical black travel cases, each placed with perfect precision. A calm voice echoed through the hall. "From this moment forward, you will travel alone. You will not see one another again until your journey is complete. Every instruction must be followed exactly. At the end of this journey, one of you will inherit everything." Uniformed attendants stepped forward, handing each contestant a travel case. No one spoke. With questions filling their minds and uncertainty in their hearts, the 5 strangers turned and walked in different directions, unaware that the greatest test of their lives had just begun. The next morning, each contestant awoke in a different location. There were no phones, no maps, no explanations, only a single envelope waiting beside their bed. Inside was a short message: "Your first challenge begins now. You have 24 hours. Follow the instructions exactly. Every choice matters. Confused but determined, they stepped out alone, unaware that someone was watching every decision they made. The journey had officially begun. The first challenge seemed surprisingly simple. Each contestant found a black briefcase waiting at their destination. Inside was exactly $100,000 in cash. Attached to the money was a single instruction. You have 24 hours. Spend this money any way you choose. Tomorrow, your journey continues. There were no cameras in sight, no judges, no explanation. Only one question remained. What would they do when they believed no one was watching? Sarah didn't hesitate. Instead of chasing luxury or comfort, she walked into a children's hospital carrying the briefcase. Quietly, she paid the medical bills of families who had already lost hope. She asked for no recognition, no photographs, no thank you. As she walked away, tears of relief filled the eyes of grateful parents. What Sarah didn't know was that her act of kindness wasn't just changing lives. It was being silently recorded as part of the greatest test she would ever face. Marcus made a different choice. He tracked down an elderly man whose life savings had been stolen years earlier, a crime Marcus himself had helped commit before turning his life around. Without revealing his identity, he returned every dollar, along with the money from the challenge. As the old man struggled to hold back tears, Marcus quietly walked away. For the first time in years, he wasn't trying to escape his past. He was finally making peace with it. David faced a choice that no amount of military training could prepare him for. On his way to the next destination, he witnessed a terrible car accident. Smoke filled the air as frightened bystanders stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Without thinking twice, David rushed into the wreckage. Ignoring the danger, he pulled a trapped family to safety moments before the vehicle burst into flames. He missed his scheduled checkpoint, but for David, saving lives was never a decision. It was simply who he was. Chloe believed the challenge was about proving she deserved the billionaire's fortune. Instead of helping others, she spent the money on luxury clothes, expensive jewelry, and a lavish penthouse suite, documenting every moment for her millions of followers. She smiled for the cameras, convinced success was measured by attention and admiration. But what Chloe didn't realize was that this journey wasn't testing her popularity. It was testing her character, and someone was watching every choice she made. Daniel approached the challenge differently. Instead of spending the money on himself, he returned to the school where he had taught for years. He quietly purchased books, computers, and classroom supplies for students whose families couldn't afford them. When the principal thanked him, Daniel simply smiled. "Every child deserves a chance to dream," he said. What he didn't know was that his greatest investment wasn't in education. It was in proving the kind of leader he truly was. That evening, Alexander Sterling watched the results unfold from a private control room hidden beneath the estate. Dozens of screens displayed every decision the contestants had made. Some had chosen compassion, others had chosen themselves. Alexander remained silent, taking notes in the worn leather journal that had guided his life for decades. A faint smile crossed his face. The first challenge wasn't about money, it was about revealing the heart behind every decision. The next morning, another black envelope arrived. Inside was a single message. "Your second challenge begins now. This time you won't be tested by money, you'll be tested by trust." Each contestant received a train ticket and the name of a stranger they had never met. Their only instruction was simple: help this person without expecting anything in return. No one knew who the stranger was, and no one knew the challenge had already begun the moment they opened the envelope. As the contestants traveled to their destinations, none of them realized the strangers they were sent to help were not ordinary people. Each encounter had been carefully arranged by Alexander Sterling's team. Every conversation, every obstacle, every act of kindness or selfishness was being observed. This wasn't just another challenge, it was a carefully designed test to reveal who each contestant truly was when they believed fate had brought them there by chance. Days turned into weeks as the challenges became more difficult. One by one, the contestants were forced to choose between honesty and convenience, compassion and ambition, integrity and personal gain. With every decision, the list of worthy successors grew smaller. Alexander wasn't searching for the smartest candidate. He was searching for the one person who would protect his legacy when no one was watching. Finally, after weeks of relentless tests, the remaining contestants were summoned back to Alexander Sterling's mountain estate. The grand hall looked exactly as they remembered, but this time the atmosphere was different. Some faces carried quiet confidence, others revealed regret. As the towering doors slowly closed behind them, they all knew the journey was over. Only one question remained: who would inherit the billionaire's empire? Alexander Sterling slowly stepped forward and looked at each finalist in silence. "You all believed you were competing for my fortune," he said, "but you were never competing for my money." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. "You were competing for something far more valuable: the responsibility to lead." The room fell completely silent as every eye remained fixed on him, waiting for the name that would change one life forever. Alexander took one final glance around the room before speaking. "The winner is not the person who impressed me the most. It's the one who kept doing the right thing even when there was nothing to gain." He slowly turned towards Sarah. A gentle smile appeared on his face. "Sarah Adeyemi, you have proven that true leadership begins with compassion." The room fell silent as everyone realized the journey had finally reached its end. As the applause filled the grand hall, Sarah stood speechless. She had never set out to become a billionaire. She had simply chosen kindness whenever she had the chance. Alexander handed her a single leather-bound journal. "This," he said, "is worth far more than my fortune." Inside were the principles that had built an empire, lessons on leadership, integrity, humility, and service. In that moment, Sarah understood. The greatest inheritance wasn't wealth, it was the responsibility to change lives. Months later, Sarah stood at the top of Sterling Enterprises, not as its owner, but as its guardian. Under her leadership, the company expanded its mission beyond profit, investing in schools, hospitals, and communities around the world. Alexander watched quietly from retirement, proud that his greatest achievement had never been his fortune. It had been finding someone worthy to carry his legacy forward. Because true success isn't measured by what you leave behind. It's measured by the lives you change. Years later, visitors entering Sterling Enterprises no longer admired the wealth displayed in its halls. Instead, they were inspired by the lives the company had transformed. On the main wall hung a simple quote from Alexander Sterling: "A fortune can build an empire, but only character can build a legacy." And every person who walked through those doors was reminded that the greatest leaders are remembered not for what they owned, but for the good they left behind. And perhaps that's the lesson for all of us. Success is never defined by the size of a bank account, but by the size of the difference we make in someone else's life. If this story inspired you, remember to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs this reminder today, because the greatest legacy you can leave is kindness. Before you go, ask yourself one question. If someone entrusted you with great wealth and great responsibility today, would your character be ready for it? Sometimes life's greatest opportunities don't go to the most talented. They go to the most trustworthy. We'll see you in the next story. The end of one legacy is often the beginning of another. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next inspiring journey. Until next time, remember, character opens doors that money never can. Some stories entertain, some stories inspire, but the best stories change the way we see the world. If this journey stayed with you, carry its lesson into your own life, because every day gives you a new opportunity to choose integrity, to choose compassion, and to build a legacy that no amount of money can ever buy. Every choice writes a chapter of your story. Every act of kindness shapes your legacy. And every opportunity to do the right thing brings you one step closer to becoming the person you were meant to be. The question isn't whether life will test your character. The question is whether you'll be ready when it does. Until our next journey, stay inspired. Marcus had entered the competition chasing a fortune, but somewhere along the journey, he discovered something far more valuable. Instead of rebuilding his own life alone, he dedicated himself to helping others do the same. The man who once believed success was measured by money, now measured it by the number of lives he helped restore. David's journey didn't end when the competition was over. Inspired by everything he had learned, he dedicated his life to helping people in times of crisis. From disaster zones to struggling communities, he became a symbol of courage and hope. For David, true success was no longer about protecting wealth, it was about protecting lives. Daniel returned to the classroom where his journey had begun. But this time he carried more than hope. With the support of the Sterling Foundation, he opened schools, funded scholarships, and gave thousands of children the opportunity to dream. Because Daniel believed that the greatest investment anyone could ever make was in the future of a child. Chloe had spent years chasing attention, but after the competition, she realized that applause fades, while kindness lasts. She quietly stepped away from the spotlight and began volunteering in communities that needed hope more than headlines. For the first time in her life, she wasn't seeking followers, she was making a difference. Sarah's greatest test didn't come during the competition. It came after she became CEO. A financial crisis forced the company to make a painful choice: lay off thousands of loyal employees, or accept lower profits to protect their livelihoods. Without hesitation, Sarah chose the people, because she knew that a company built on trust would always be stronger than one built on fear. Years after stepping away from the spotlight, Alexander Sterling returned quietly, without security, without cameras, without anyone recognizing him. He walked through one of the schools Sarah had built, listening to children laugh and teachers speak with hope. As he smiled to himself, Alexander realized that his greatest investment had never been his company. It had been believing in the right successor. One little girl walked onto the stage with a handmade card in her hands. She smiled and thanked the unknown donor who had made her school possible. Neither she nor her classmates knew that Alexander Sterling was standing quietly in the back of the room, listening. Beside him, Sarah watched with tears in her eyes. In that moment, they both realized the greatest reward wasn't recognition. It was knowing that someone's future had been changed forever. Just when everything seemed secure, a global economic crisis shook the world. Markets collapsed. Investors demanded deep cuts. The board urged Sarah to abandon the company's charitable programs to protect profits. For the second time in her life, she would have to choose between money and her principles. The board expected Sarah to protect the company's profits. Instead, she protected its purpose. "We may earn less this year," she said, "but we will never abandon the people who depend on us." The room fell silent. In that moment, everyone understood that true leadership isn't revealed during success. It's revealed when doing the right thing comes at a cost. At first, many believed Sarah had made a costly mistake. But something unexpected happened. Customers stood by the company. Investors who believed in long-term values returned. And talented people from around the world wanted to work for a business that refused to compromise its principles. In the end, integrity became Sterling Enterprises' greatest investment. One afternoon, Marcus walked into Sarah's office, not to ask for money, but to say thank you. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself," he said. Sarah smiled. "Sometimes," she replied, "all a person needs is one chance, and someone willing to see the good in them." Marcus left with tears in his eyes, determined to give that same chance to others. Across the world, David continued answering every call for help. Floods, earthquakes, wildfires, wherever disaster struck, he was there. Not because anyone expected him to be, but because he had discovered that the greatest form of courage is showing up when others need you most. Years later, a young woman stood before Daniel with tears in her eyes. "Because of your scholarship," she said, "I became the first doctor in my family." Daniel smiled quietly. He had forgotten the donation long ago, but its impact had never been forgotten. In that moment, he was reminded that the smallest act of generosity can echo through generations. As his health slowly faded, Alexander wrote one final letter to Sarah. It wasn't about business or wealth, it was about life. He wrote, "The world will remember your success for a while, but it will remember your kindness forever. Lead with courage, give without expecting anything in return, and never forget, people will always matter more than profits." Sarah folded the letter carefully, knowing those words would guide her for the rest of her life. After Alexander's passing, Sarah discovered a hidden room behind his private library. Inside were shelves filled with handwritten journals, faded photographs, and letters spanning more than 50 years. Each page revealed the victories no one had celebrated, the sacrifices no one had witnessed, and the countless quiet acts of kindness that had shaped an empire. As Sarah turned the final page, she whispered, "Now I understand. Your greatest legacy was never the company. It was the lives you changed." Sarah transformed Alexander's journals into a leadership program taught around the world, not to create better executives, but to create better human beings. Thousands of future leaders studied his lessons, learning that greatness isn't measured by the size of your company, but by the number of lives that are better because you existed. On the anniversary of Alexander Sterling's passing, employees from every branch gathered in silence. There were no speeches, no business reports, only thousands of volunteers serving meals, rebuilding homes, planting trees, and helping strangers. Because the greatest way to honor his memory was not with words but with action. Months later, 5 ordinary people living completely different lives received the same mysterious black envelope. No sender, no explanation, only a single sentence inside. "Your character has been noticed." Across the city, each of them looked up with the same expression of confusion and curiosity, unaware that a journey capable of changing their lives forever had already begun. Alexander Sterling's chair remained empty, but his presence could still be felt in every decision the company made. His values had become the foundation of an entire generation of leaders. Though he was gone, his vision continued to guide millions, because true leaders never really leave, they live on through the people they inspire. Thousands gathered to celebrate Alexander Sterling's life. Employees, students, families, and complete strangers whose lives had been changed by his generosity. One by one, they shared stories of hope, second chances, and quiet acts of kindness that had transformed their futures. As Sarah looked across the crowd, she realized something extraordinary. Alexander hadn't built an empire of buildings. He had built an empire of people. Standing before every employee of Sterling Enterprises, Sarah made a promise. "This company will never measure success by profit alone. We will measure it by the opportunities we create, the families we support, and the lives we change." The room erupted in applause. At that moment, everyone understood that Alexander's legacy had not ended. It had simply found a new heart, and under Sarah's leadership, that legacy would continue to inspire generations to come. Months later, 5 strangers stood before the towering gates of the Sterling estate. Each carried the same mysterious black envelope. Each had been chosen for a reason they did not yet understand. As the gates slowly opened, they exchanged uncertain glances. None of them knew that the journey ahead would test not their intelligence, not their wealth, but the strength of their character. And somewhere beyond those gates, a new legacy was about to begin. As one journey came to an end, another quietly began. The world will always remember great fortunes, but it will never forget great character. Because money can open doors, power can build empires, but only kindness can change lives. Perhaps the next person called to leave a lasting legacy could be someone just like you. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, remember this: a fortune may build an empire, but only character can build a legacy.